Okay, what we're going to talk about is natural law and a bit about mortgage repos, foreclosures on homes and that sort of thing. I watched a video the other night and it was by Pockets of the Future, and he was talking about Fed buying up mortgage notes, and this is all to do with extracting wealth. When crap hits the fan, what they'll do is, well, we're going to see a ton of foreclosures when people can't pay their mortgages. So it's a way of extracting wealth from the system. So with that being said, I wanted to offer some kind of a solution, because there really isn't a solution for people that are in that predicament. So I wanted to offer some kind of solution. It's worth a try. It's what I would do if I was in that situation. And really, I don't think there's anything else to lose if you try it. Really, if you're in dire straits. So what we've got to know first is how the legal system works and what the legal system is. Now, I've done this in other videos, so I don't want to go too much into it. But basically, what the legal system is a trading system which you have been. In fact, I have to choose my words carefully, because I've got to simplify it enough for you to understand. But at the same time, I'm technically, some of this stuff at the very technical level might be a little bit not quite right. But I've got to make it simple enough for people to understand. So what has happened is you have been put into a trading system. Okay, you really haven't, but they've made you a little piece of paper, a trading card, that looks a bit like you in terms of description. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to trade within the system. Not technically correct, but just to understand what I'm getting at, it's good enough. Okay, so you can now trade within the system. What is really going on is they're really just allowing you to play along with something that they already have. They're not really designating it to you. They're not really giving you anything. They're just giving you the illusion and allowing you to play along. That's a better idea of it. So, because you don't have any rights within the legal system, a man doesn't, because it's nothing to do with men, apart from the fact that it's an illusion that we all play along with. Now, I've already probably lost a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that watch my channel probably want to know this, but just stick with me. You're in essentially a trading system, and the trading system allows you to go ahead and get certain bits and pieces, and you can get loans, and you can get what else can you get? Stuff that costs money, basically licenses to do things which in the real world you don't really need, but the illusion is that there's some kind of protectionism there. And originally, when they would have set these trading companies up, there would have been a protection there. And the protection would have been, you would have had security to know that you could trade with somebody else. Back in the olden days when you were going several hundred miles down the road to trade with somebody, it's not like dealing with your neighbour. Where your neighbour is, you can go and see him straight away if something's wrong. No, you're dealing with somebody that you may never see again. So you've got to have some kind of security. So what they did is they set up a system where you paid in to be a trader. So you paid a certain lump sum of money in, and then you probably paid some dues as well every year that you traded. And what you did is you paid in a big lump sum of money that would guarantee you to trade to a certain level. It's as simple as this. So say I put 10 grand into the bank, into the legal system that is the trading system. I put 10 grand in. Now I'm authorized to make trades of up to $10,000, something like that. You get the idea. Or maybe you're allowed to trade a certain percentage of what you had in the bank, maybe 10%. Maybe you're allowed to make a trade of $1,000 at a time, so there's a little bit in reserve for when you make another trade. You follow what I'm saying, though? there had to be that money there, an escrow account, to guarantee all your debts. And if there was a problem between individuals within the trading system, they would have judges, like we have today, that sort those disputes out. They would have written contracts, and they would have certain rules and regulations that said this is how you do this, that, and the other. What's actually happened is we've been drug in, and there's been a sort of amalgamation of government and this trading company, and what we've got is we've got a huge mess. On the one hand, people are making a ton of money off of people, and so's the government, and also they are now able to enforce a lot more control over people, because there's this they've trapped us into this illusion of believing we're that trading card, that little piece of paper. That little piece of paper, which is the birth certificate that they create when you come into the world. Now, you will never see an original document. You will never be the possessor of an original document. They keep a hold of all that stuff, because the way it works in reality is he who possesses the thing controls the thing. If I give you something, I no longer control that thing. So if somebody was to give me the birth certificate that they created, they no longer control it. So what you receive to keep you in the illusion is you receive a certified copy of whatever the document is. And you think, oh yeah, this is mine now, this is they keep the original, and it's all about jurisdiction over the idea that is contained on whatever sheet of paper they wrote it on. Now, in order to keep this video short, we know what the system is. Now, what we've got to move to is we've got to understand that there's a difference between a man and that system. That system is all fictional. It's all made up by other men. It's all ideas that somebody's written down on a piece of paper. Now, in the reality that we're in, does a fiction control you? Does a fiction control what you do from day to day? It shouldn't. Only a real physical thing should control you in this real physical environment. Now, in here, there's a fiction floating about. We all know there's a fiction floating about. We all know there's something special, our spirit within our body. We all know there's something special there that no scientist can they can't put a material fingerprint on the thing. That you can't. There's no substance to it, yet we know it exists. This is the fiction. So we're starting to get into some ideas of natural law now. Things in the material world govern the material. The only fiction that governs you is the fiction that's contained within your body. Yet, we let other men control us. Now, I don't want to delve into natural law too much, but we have to understand a couple of things. Two things with natural law. Well, maybe two or three things. But number one, all men are created equal. Men, women are equal. All men are created equal. Okay? We know this because it takes a man and a woman. It takes the strong side of the species and the weaker side of the species to perpetuate the species. So there is no argument, well, the strongest rule, or that it's the survival of the fittest. That's all twisted nonsense. They've done a good job at twisting evolution to fit their needs. And that's if you even believe evolution to begin with, because it's got there's a lot of little problems with all of it. But where I'm going with this is you have to have this understanding that everybody's equal. And if you don't want to believe me, and you don't have the inherent knowledge that we're all equal, which most of us are born with, you can actually go to a document and have a look. And it's called the Declaration of Independence. You can go and look it up. You can read the first about this. gosh, you can read the first about this much of it, and you don't have to read the whole thing, and it's there in writing for you to read. All men are created equal. Okay, it's the foundational document of the fictional country that we're living in. As to interpretation of it and all the rest of that stuff, you know, whatever. It's an issue trying to get to the correct meaning behind certain things. But to keep things simple, it is there. You can go and read it in a fictional document. The people that created this fictional system actually went to the trouble of putting natural law into the start of the foundational document of this country. And, you know, that's what lets them sleep a little bit better at night, you know. You know, even them psychopaths have got to get a bit of sleep, and, you know, they probably feel a little bit better about themselves when they've put it in the first document you should ever read, and nobody does, and nobody realizes what it really means. And so, you know, they probably have the mindset of, well, you know, we've put it in there, what else can we do? You know, if people don't want to read that stuff, then that's their own fault, you know. It's a little more complicated than that, but I'm just simplifying the ideas behind, you know, the nut jobs that are out there running the show, and, you know, where we are now. So, if you don't believe me on natural law, you can go and look at that. If you don't have an inherent knowledge of natural law, you can go and look at that. And if you can't interpret nature outside the window, you can go and look at that. Because you can, if you go back to some of my other videos, you can interpret all these things from nature, you know. Essentially, you know, this idea of natural law is a similar idea to Moses with the Ten Commandments and those things being set in stone. Well, what does being set in stone really mean? It means being immutable, not being able to be changed, which is nature. You can't change the rules of nature. At least I don't know anybody that can change the actual rules of nature. So they're set in stone. They can't be changed. They are material rules, so they are set in stone. Right. That set of rules is what sits above all the rules made up in the legal system. Whenever they make up a bunch of rules, they, you know, well, it used to be that they would try to stick to natural law. They couldn't violate natural law when they were writing those rules. So there was a problem, and this is where the legal system steps in. In order to be able to violate those rules, what you have to do is you have to get everybody into an illusion that they are playing along with, where the rules don't, that set of rules really doesn't apply to a fictional character. Any kind of fictional character, such as the birth certificate, natural law doesn't apply to that character because it's completely made up. There is a small caveat there, but because the man behind making up that idea, if he breaks natural law in the process of delivering that idea to another man, let's put it that way, so when they send you a summons, you know, to go to court, or when they lock you up for something, they're treading on thin water there with overstepping a boundary into natural law. The man giving the orders is on a very thin line, if you like, and he doesn't want to step over into natural law. He wants to remain in the legal side of things, because in the legal side of things there is no repercussions, because it's all fiction. It's all made up. If you want to go along with it, that's your deal. If you want to go along with it, that's your thing. But see, there has to be always 100% agreement or consent to go along with that thing. Otherwise, if you're forced into it, now they are breaking natural law. So there's a fine line there, and the way they have to do a certain amount of forcing. So the way they do that is they leave it up to the lower level people to make the mistake. And when the lower level people make the mistake because they think they have a right to do something, which they don't, they make that mistake, and in doing so, when a cop arrests somebody when that man hasn't done any harm to another man, so say a guy was, I don't know, walked to the side of the road because he's dying for a piss and took a whittle on the side of the road there, and a cop pulls up and says, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, I'm going to have to arrest you, indecent exposure, there's nobody else about, you know, but the cop still arrests you. Now, they don't have the right to do that. They do not have the right to do that unless you're in somebody else's home and they've said that guy shouldn't have done that and I want this guy dealt with. But that's another thing. We're on common ground, okay, and the cop has arrested, you know, you or somebody or the man that's taken the pee. He shouldn't have done that, and that's a mistake made by the lower level man now, the cop. That's a mistake he's made, which reinforces the fear in people to abide by the rules that are set by the legal system. So this is the way that works. They simply let people at the lower level make mistakes. So what we need to do, I don't know if I'm probably going to end up going around in circles here a little bit, but what we need to do is we need to say, look, before you arrest me, I need to speak to your boss, and speak to the boss, and then before your guy that's working for you arrests me, I need to speak to your boss. And you see, what we need to do is we need to go up the chain till we get to somebody who actually understands natural law. And what we need to do when we get to that person, and I'm sorry I'm using person, but when we get to that man, we need to make him accountable under natural law. How do you do that? You simply say, look, you're violating natural law. I'm notifying you of that now, and you are now accountable for your actions. And anybody that wears the fictional veil along with you, that's playing your game, that you're in charge of, that you have some kind of control over, all those people below you as well, you are now responsible for their actions. I'm making you responsible as the man. That's all you can do. But you've got to go up the chain and hope for the best, I guess. Oh, these bugs tonight. Gosh. Anyway, I wanted to keep this video short. So, let's just do a quick recap. We know that in the physical realm, there's two different realms. Okay, we've got the physical realm, which is us, man, and then we've got the fictional realm, which is where ideas come from and all that other kind of stuff. A spirit world, if you like, that doesn't have any physical being in this world, but we know it's there. So, the only thing an individual spirit has control over, my individual spirit only has control over this body. And this body must act according to the rules of nature. This body must act according to the rules of the material world. So, I have a choice as a spirit inside here. I can either obey those rules, or I can not obey them and do something bad, you know. That's my individual choice, but there's a set of rules that are put there because the body is the physical being within the world. So the body must obey those rules. Right. So we've got the two different jurisdictions. Now what we have to recognize is that the legal system is if you like, an overlay of reality. You know, you've probably seen the film The Matrix. This is what The Matrix is all about. This is what a lot of those films by the Wachowskis are about. There is an overlay of reality. A matrix, a piece of tracing paper over the top of what we see here. And all those little documents that describe the material world is the legal system. And those documents are only controlled by the people who have the document. So you don't actually have any of those documents. I'm not going to talk about driving license, that's a bit different. And you do have some of those documents, but just to keep it simple, the important document, which is the birth certificate, you do not have. You have a certified copy of it. The man, I say the man that controls it, but it's the system that controls that birth certificate, has jurisdiction over the birth certificate. So that's the trading card. That's the reality overlay, and you have now stepped into believing you are that thing. I know this is difficult to get your head wrapped around. So you play along with all the rules that govern that thing. And these are the same rules that will end up getting your house taken away from you in a foreclosure, because you believe in those rules. And you believe that the bank has the right to come and take some physical property when they don't. What we have to understand is there's no crossover. There's a boundary line, and there is no crossover between the two things. The man sits over here in the physical world and has jurisdiction over the physical objects. The fiction has jurisdiction over jack shit. Sorry to use French there, but there is no, it has no control over anything in the real world. You might think it does, but it doesn't. The only thing that gives it control is when you consent to allowing it to give it, to giving the legal system control over you or over something that you possess. That's the only time it has control, when you consent to it. So, oh boy, we're only at 21 minutes. I'm going to try and do this in half an hour. We've got the two separate jurisdictions. The fictional jurisdiction, where does a bank exist? It's a fictional thing. It doesn't have any control over the physical home or the physical land where you reside. It doesn't have any control over that. The only thing it has control over is a piece of paper that describes that thing, the deed. That's the only thing it has control over. And guess what? You don't even have the deed anyway. The deed is at the courthouse. The original deed will be at the courthouse. So you don't even have an original deed. Now you're going to say, well, the legal system has jurisdiction over the birth certificate man that signed that deed, which is what I am. No, it's not. They also have the original birth certificate down in their filing cabinet somewhere, collecting dust, is a birth certificate, the original one, and that's what they have jurisdiction over. The legal system only has jurisdiction over those pieces of paper. In fact, they only have jurisdiction over the ideas that are contained on those pieces of paper. But I don't want to make it too complicated right now. So, if a fiction can only have jurisdiction over other fictional ideas, how are they able to repossess a house? The only way they can repossess a house is making enough people believe that that is lawful. That's the only way they can do it. So they have to get everybody believing in the illusion. So, as a man, when you've lived in a place, I would say when you've lived in a place for over half a year, you have, as soon as you live in the place, you start having a level of dominion over that thing. Once you've made it a year, you have a really good standing of dominion over that property. I don't want to get into how long you need to be in a place before you technically own it. And as long as the other man that has exchanged value with you is happy and he is satisfied when he leaves that thing, there's no coming back for him. Unless, this would be the only stipulation here, is that unless you've done a owner, unless you're in some kind of owner financed purchase, then again, that's not really going to apply to being foreclosed on by a mortgage. But still, if you default on your payments to that guy, he's well within his rights to take that home back. That's his value there. But at the same time, if you've paid him value and you've had the use of the house, those two things have got to be weighed up and agreed upon what the outcome would be there, so that you both leave with the same value at the end of the day if you can't pay back that loan from him, i.e. you can't pay for your house. Now, when you can't pay for your house in the legal system, who's actually paying for the house is that little trading card. Okay, and they've allowed you to play along with the illusion. They've allowed you to pretend to be that thing, and they're quite happy for you to do that because that's how they extract wealth from you. Now, even though you don't even have jurisdiction, you don't have the jurisdiction to do that, really. So you play along with it, but they can't do anything about it because you're dealing with two separate entities. You're dealing with fiction and man. So man can do what the hell he likes. They can't do anything in return. But they allow you to play along with it, even though you don't have jurisdiction over it, because they have the original birth certificate in their filing cabinet. The man that possesses controls what that thing does. Now, I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit lost here now. So it's the person that is paying for the mortgage. So the bank is doing a deal with a fictional person, both fictional entities. Now they're in the trading system. They've set this trading system up. Now some of you may be aware of people going on about like accepting stuff for value, and there's a huge account with a ton of cash in it that's got your name on it. Well, when they set that trading company up, when they set the trading man up, the trading person, the fictional person up, the straw man or whatever you want to call it, when they set that guy up, they have to have an account that will cover all of his debts. So they have to have that guarantor escrow type account, that a big chunk of money that is sitting there that will cover potentially all the debts that person, that fictional person, could amount within a lifetime. This is why you'll see when they create the birth certificate, if the man where they copy the idea from happens to come from a family that's a bit more well off, the bond that they create that covers the debt for that entity, that chunk of money that they put there for that thing to spend if it needs to, it is usually a reflection of the man's potential income, you know. So there'll be some people will have several million, while other people will have maybe just a few million in the account. But regardless, there is that account there. It's a hidden account. Many people say it exists. I haven't gone on the hunt for it. I just take other people's words for it. But the fact of the matter is, if you use logical deduction, there has to be a guarantor account there to cover all those debts in a trading situation. Otherwise, you know, you do a deal with a guy and he walks off, you're stuck. So that guarantor account has to be there to cover those debts. Well, when you go into court, you know, under the illusion, they're not going to tell you this, that there's a chunk of money that they've already put there to cover all these debts. They want to trick the man into paying for the debts of the fictional person. Well, the fictional person wouldn't really have any debts if the man didn't go out and do something with the fictional person. But they know that they can make more money from getting the man to believe the illusion and fall under the illusion. They can make a lot more money than they would ever have to shell out of that account. And they never shell anything out of those accounts, in all likelihood. Probably unless somebody dies, the physical man somehow dies, and the people that are actually trading on the other end that make a claim against that man that's died happen to know that they can get to that account. Otherwise, that account goes untouched. And then the money goes back in the pocket of the person who put it there. It's all fictional money anyway, but you know, if the government put the money in there, then the government get the money back. And in the meantime, maybe they create a bond on that. Maybe that whatever they do on that money is irrelevant. Just know that it has to be there. Now, when you get into a foreclosure situation where you cannot pay that money back, and I'm not saying to people, you know, is it right to take value and then do a bunk on that system? I don't know. You have to deal with that yourself in your own head, whether it's all right to just say, hey, I'm not paying this anymore. That's the fictional man. I keep saying fictional man. The fictional person that made that deal. And guess what? You actually own that man. Number one, that man is in your filing cabinet. Number two, the deed for the make-believe property is in your filing cabinet that this is all based from. Number three, what is number three? Number three is the whole thing is fictional. There is an account there that will cover the fictional man's debts if he can't pay. If he decides all of a sudden he's not going to pay, there is an account there that will pay for that. There's several million in it. They're all going to look at you like, oh, either the judge will know or the judge won't know. If the judge doesn't know, I don't know what he would do, actually. I'm sure they've got to know this stuff. They have to know it. At some level, they have to know it. And they're probably... I'd love to know the inner workings of how they tell these judges, look, this is how it works, but we never go to that thing. We never go to that account. And I bet you any money, what happens is, if there's a debt there that's going to get settled by that account, it doesn't even show up in court. Those things don't show up in court. So you have to... So what I'm saying is you've got to be proactive. If you don't want to get foreclosed on, you have to go to the bank and say, you know, once you can't make that payment, you know, however many times you've got before they can foreclose on you, because you can bet your bottom dollar, if, let's say, if there's like 3 missed payments that you can do, on that third one, that's going to be it. It's going to be game over. They're going to be knocking at the door straight away, because they can make so much more money by foreclosing on you than they ever will. Well, actually, what they really want to do is they really want to foreclose on you after you've given them a bunch of money to begin with. You know, that way they've made an absolute ton of money. But they are going to. You are going to have to be proactive, and as soon as you know there is no way that you can pay that now. You've got to go down to the bank and say, look, I need to speak you. There's no way that the fictional man is going to be able to pay this anymore. You're going to have to go to a judge and ask for the fictional man, not me, and you won't be repossessing my property. Don't call it property, because that's a sort of legal term. You won't be repossessing my possessions. You can't repossess them because they were never yours to begin with. And you don't have a right to repossess them because they are not within the fictional system. They are material objects in the material world, which you don't have jurisdiction over to do anything with. The only thing that you have a right to go and repossess, you can go down the courthouse and repossess the original deed if you want, that piece of paper that's in their filing cabinet. You can go and claim back from the original birth certificate. The only thing that you have jurisdiction over is the original birth certificate. The only thing the judge has jurisdiction over is the original birth certificate that's in a filing cabinet there somewhere. So you need to go down to the bank and tell them, hey, they won't understand what the hell you're talking about. They'll look at you like you've gone bark raving bonkers, you know. You have to tell them, hey, when you deal with the courts now, you better get hold of the actual judge when you deal with this, because I don't want to get dragged into court, and I don't want somebody coming knocking at my house trying to repossess my stuff or my possessions, my physical things. You write this down and give it to them and get an actual receipt that you've told them this stuff. And you say, I want to know when you're doing it, when you go to the judge, I want to know the judge's name. And in all likelihood, they don't have to tell you that, but if you ask them to, maybe they will. But no doubt, at some point, you'll get a notice from the court and you go straight to the court and you say, I've got to speak to the judge that's in charge of this case, or who is going to be in charge of this case. Oh, we've not assigned it, and say, I've got to get this sorted out now because there's a big mistake about to be made, and a big violation of natural law is about to happen. Which in natural law, you can tell them this, in natural law, it's right in the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. It's what the country's founded on. You can tell these people that. You've got to call that judge out as a man. You've got to say, look, you're about to make a mistake as a man. And do the same with the bank manager. You've got to say, you're making a mistake as a man now. You're breaking natural law if you come and touch or try to take my property, or set your dogs on me. The people that you're giving orders to, that are wearing your fictional veil, you set those people on me, you're breaking natural law. You've got to call those people out as men. You've got to say, I don't see you as a fictional thing. I can only see you as a real thing. You're in front of me now. So you've got to call those men out. You've got to call the judge out. You've got to say, look, I know you have an account that pays for that piece of paper you have in that birth certificate you have in the filing cabinet, in your filing cabinet, and any debts that's on that thing, which would happen to be the mortgage for the property, for the legal property, which is the deed, that mirrors my physical possessions. Now, you have to get him to, you just have to say to him, you're going to have to delve into that account and pay the bank off. That's what you're going to have to do, or you're going to have to sort it out between you and the bank. It's between you and the bank and the county office that has the deed in their filing cabinet, because that's really what they're dealing with. They're dealing with bunches of bits of paper and who has jurisdiction over what, and you have to just make those people aware that you're not that thing. And if they ask you your birthday, you don't have a birthday, okay? This is just I probably should have covered this at the start of the video. You do not have a birthday. In a later video, I'll go into the fact that this is not quite strictly true, but you can work around that. But you have to understand language to be able to work around that idea. And you have to be able to understand language and how language works, and the difference between descriptive language, what the man talks, and I say prescriptive language, but it's just a gobbledygook of all kinds of different languages that the legal system talks. And really, it really isn't even a language, because there is really no proper definition, because it's complete fiction, because a man doesn't author that thing. If you try to get a high up guy to author something within the legal system, I doubt you could do it. I doubt you could get them to author it and put meaning behind something. Every time that meaning's put behind something within the legal system, it's usually a fictional character that puts the meaning behind it, like a judge or something. All fictional characters that do that. Anyway, so there is no real meaning behind those words. So you've got to realize, when they start asking you questions trying to trap you, you've got to really realize that they actually have no definition behind their words. And you can get into this before the judge even gets going. You can say, look, how are we ever going to come to understanding when you're not going to put any definitions behind what you're saying? I've got to have a definition for everything you say to me, and we've got to come to an understanding, you the man and me, about what that means. You've got to author those words and what they mean, and he's not going to want to have anything to do with that. But that's for a video on another day. What I want to say, though, is you don't get trapped by is this your birth certificate? Is this your driving license? If you know how to deal with those questions, you can actually answer in a different way that I'm going to tell you now. But you just want to answer no. These are all fictional ideas. They have nothing to do with the real man. Okay? That piece of paper, these are all copies of stuff that you've got. There's nothing to do with me, really. I don't know why you keep sending me this stuff. You want me to play along with some illusion? Well, I'm not playing along with it. I don't give consent to play along with it. So you've got to understand how to talk back to these people, because what they're going to want to try and do is, if you're in a courtroom situation, they're going to want to try and trap you. And if they happen to be writing it down at the time, they can do that. Now, there's nothing to stop you from saying at any time during that thing, if they said, oh, you are that, there's nothing to stop you clicking in here and say, oh, really, I made a mistake. If you make a mistake, you simply say, oh, no, sorry, that was a mistake what I just said. I take that back. I've made a complete mistake there, and I do beg your pardon. And they got no option but to, when a man makes a mistake, you have to always give him the benefit of the doubt. That's just, another natural law thing. You can't, capitalize on somebody else's mistake. It's just not right, and we know that. So, I think I've just about covered it. The simple fact of the matter is, if you can get away from the mindset of believing that you are that fictional thing, or that you owe some make-believe money to another, to another entity, if you can get away from that mindset, you could possibly get out of that problem. The issue that you're going to have, and the issue that we're all going to have, is the lower down people down the totem pole carrying out the dirty work without realizing what they're doing is wrong. And so what you have to be able to do is somehow say, look, I'm making you responsible for all the harm. You're making a big mistake here, and I'm going to make you responsible. You, the man, now. The information that's been sent down to you is wrong. All I'm asking you to do is go and check with your superior, and then he can go and check with the next guy up the road who made this ruling. Somebody at some point makes the ruling and has to put a little fake signature on that thing, whether it be a court judge or whatever. I got to speak to this man. And as soon as you get to that man, and make every man along the way responsible under natural law, but you've got to pull that guy out of the fiction. You say, look, I don't see you as and you go through all that stuff that I just said. You say, a fiction doesn't have control over material things. I don't consent to any of this. I am a living, breathing man. I am not that fictional character that you have in your filing cabinet. You have to pull that. I see you, judge, as a living man. I'm not going to deal with your fictional language. I want you to speak to me. I want you to author your words, and I want you to give meaning to them so we can understand each other. Once you start getting into that, once you start showing them that you know what the hell you're talking about, and it's going to take a little bit of just watching, you've just got to keep on watching stuff and thinking about stuff for a little while before it all starts clicking. It took a little while for it to click for me. I mean, I'm talking now, thinking about it, it's probably taken, for it really to sort of click in, it's probably taken a good year. One good year. And that's just thinking about, that's just thinking about how that whole thing works. It's taken a good year for it really to start clicking and the cogs to start turning on how that works. I spent several years before that looking at all these different legal remedies and what is legal and what, all the different stuff in the Constitution and all that nonsense. So it took me it's taken me several years to get to this point. So I'm just trying to short track this for a lot of people. But you've got to pull the man that wants to put the fake signature on the thing that's going to control those other men to do bad things, those cops and those bailiffs or whatever the hell you're dealing with. You've got to say, hey, you're responsible. You're in court, and he says, you speak out of turn again one more time, and I'll have you found in contempt, and you'll go down to the locker for a few hours. Before, if he ever says that, I say, I hold you responsible as a man for setting your dogs on me, for breaking natural law right now. You've got to just jump straight in there with that. You try to lock me up, and you're responsible. You're the one setting the dogs on me. You're the one. You, the one, as the man. I only deal with another man. I don't care what they know and whether they're going to follow your orders. You're the man making the orders. You're the man responsible. I'm calling you out under the big man upstairs. That's all you can do. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for somebody. I know I waffled a lot in there. I know there's so much material to cover with this sort of stuff. Go back, watch some of my other videos. I'll tell you which one's a good one to watch, that Monopoly one. That kind of explains how you'll find it. It's got a Monopoly board on the thumbnail. And I think I named it something about Manopoly. Go back and look at that one. That one's a good one to start trying to unravel this idea that the system that you believe in, the thing that you believe in, is fictional. You believe that you are that fictional character. You believe you're that top hat. That's what you believe. And the cunning thing about it is they gave their fictional card player, their fictional trader, the same name as you. Anyway, one little nugget. If anybody ever asks you when you were born, you've got to say, well, I don't know. I can't possibly remember that, number one. Also, let's forget definitions. I was created 9 months before whatever date you're thinking of. So there's another little nugget, You were created 9 months before that event happened. So it has nothing to do with you. What you want to name it or whatever. I'll do one on language and this idea. I'll have to do one because I haven't covered language yet. And there's some nuances to language now that I was, like at the start of the year, I was pretty much unaware of. And it has to do with language and actually what jurisdiction you're in may determine what that piece of language means, and who said it and who authored it is going to reflect what the meaning behind language is. So it's not as simple as just saying look at Blacklaw's dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary or whatever else dictionary you want to look at. It's not that simple. Anyway, I'm going off again. I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully that's helpful for somebody. So I hope there's nobody out there getting their homes repossessed. Just remember, the thing trying to repossess your home has no jurisdiction to repossess your home. It's a fiction. I mean, if it's nothing more than saying, show me your jurisdiction to repossess a physical thing in the physical world. Show me where you have that jurisdiction. That's all I want to see. And they'll show you a bit of paper and say, that's a fictional piece of paper. I want to know where the natural law is that says you can do that. And there is no natural law that says they can do that. So anyway, stop Dan, stop. Alright, cheerio, bye, have a good one.